Batman Beyond is the future, not exactly a bold claim, but when it comes to people and their idea on who is the most ideal successor to the Batman mantle, usually people will say Terry McGinnis, and it's not really hard to understand and figure out why. He had a very popular TV show in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that's really been ingrained in the hearts of so many kids. It's a story about a kid just like you or me deciding that he wants to better himself after leaving on very bad terms with his father. He ends up dying, right? The dad just goes poof, and he's like, I yelled at him, right? That was my final interaction with my father, a negative one, so he feels so much guilt within his heart, on top of already being a quote-unquote kinda reformed street kid, right? And he went to juvie, he did a lot of bad things, but eventually he was able to get his life together, and he believes that being Batman is a state of redemption. By going out there and saving people, putting his life on the line, he is making up for past sins. He's kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of our favorite everyman character archetypes, but just placed into a Batman configuration. And the mold itself, it really works. Batman in the future, Neo-Gotham architecture, splicer DNA, cybernetics, a cool aesthetic, great music, and just a really rad, shui looking batsuit. What is there not to like? And I did a poll recently, and no matter how much I agree or disagree with the outcome, the people have spoken. Terry McGinnis is the person, for all intents and purposes, the one who should hold and carry on the metaphorical cape and cowl. But it isn't all rainbows and sunshines, because there is this one, a teensy little bit of a crack within the structure. And that crack, of course, is the big episode that I want to talk about with my opinions on it and how that really reframes the character of Terry McGinnis. That, of course, being Justice League Unlimited Season 2, Episode 13, I believe, right? I'll leave a little indicator on top if I mess that up. Epilogue. The brothers down at Watchtower Database, they always say, I love this channel to death, by the way, they always say keep Epilogue a secret, but for today, we are going to have to break those rules. What's up, guys? It is Nate, and I know I haven't posted in a long hot minute, but you know, finals week was kicking my dude, I was going through it, bro. I was knocked down and I had to pick myself back up. If any of you guys had to go through finals week, you know how it is, right? It will kick you down, and hopefully you'll have the strength to bring yourself back up. I'm being highly dramatic, but it does take a lot out of you, and congratulations to anybody who just finished up their final exams, and honestly, good luck if you still have more to go. But a little catch up aside, let's get straight into what this video is about. The idea of if Epilogue really ruins Terry McGinnis as a character. I've been seeing a lot of slander on the TL, mainly because there is a bunch of Terry McGinnis fans who are being very, let's just say, not exactly politically correct in the way that they're interacting with Miles Morales fans. There's been this huge idea of who is the better legacy character between these two juggernauts, and they haven't exactly been using the best material to shut down Miles fans, even though we have an entire peak show to use at your disposal. But you know, some fans are really not that smart, and I'm one of them, but but I'm gonna try to pull up Terry's rep through one of the most disastrous storylines in terms of fan perception, and trying to see if I could spread a bit of a light on why I deem it to be such a great episode that really bookmarks the DCAU as the finale of not only the entire universe, but the whole 10 to 12 year spanning era of Batman and cartoons. That was all of our childhood, and I believe it wrapped it up in a very neat bow. And hopefully at the end of this video, you either have a better perspective on Epilogue as an episode, or maybe if you still don't agree with it, you understand why I believe it doesn't completely ruin his character. Also, if I see one more Tim Drake Batman Beyond slander, I will lose my mind. I will So, Epilogue kind of came out like 20 years ago, which is crazy to say, bro. Time goes by so quickly. But I know a lot of people are going to come into this video based on their prior knowledge and the emotions that they felt in that moment when they watched the episode. So I'm going to do my little favor to you, is I am going to recap the episode in the best way that I can and have a little bit of my anecdotes dropped in the middle. I'm going to put a lot in, actually. Sit tight.
Think about it. Bruce wanted a successor, another Batman. He planned it all from the beginning. I never had a chance.
Honey, Bruce didn't overwrite your DNA with his. I did.
Epilogue is not a traditional Batman Beyond episode because it was actually the finale to Season 2 of Justice League Unlimited. Why is that, you may ask? Well, the creators were fearing that their show was going to get cancelled at Season 2, so they were thinking, what is the best way to bookend the DCAU, the 15 years of storytelling that we did? My opinion, and the belief of everybody in that writing room, was that you have to tackle the primary character of your verse and his ending, Batman, and you have to tackle the future, the far-flung future, to the point gap where we see the DCAU end off at, and that was Batman Beyond. So this was a good point of discussion, and that is why we see such a huge time gap between Season 3 of Batman Beyond and Epilogue. Batman Beyond was not supposed to end at Season 3, but now we see him as an adult in this episode. It's a story about Terry coming face to face with a fear that he's been avoiding the entire time, the fear that his life is not his own. Instead of showing us a simple flashback timeline though, the entire narrative is filtered through Terry's anxieties about becoming Bruce Wayne 2.0. What does that entail? Well, he believes that he is a clone. He believes that it was his destiny to become Bruce because of that. He's actually pushing people away just like Bruce. Dana, his girlfriend, is slipping away from him, quote unquote. We'll get back to this later. On top of the fact that he's becoming a lot more cold and distant from the members of the Justice League. He's trapped in a role that he never asked for, and the editing reflects that, right? Scenes jump back and forth through time, not to confuse the viewer, but to show Terry's psychological state. A collage of uncertainty here, projection there, dread here, right? Terry is going through it, and to kind of bring back all the pieces, he goes to Amanda Waller. It's a narrative built on mystery. There are so many unknowable pieces that Amanda's the only one who has the answers, because he believes learning the truth about him, about what he is, will let him escape Batman, the entire mythological idea of what the Bat really is. In actuality, the episode is about proving that Batman, he became that because of who he is, not because of anything Bruce or Amanda forced onto him. In essence, if I was supposed to distill it down, it's a story about reclaiming your agency. It just works. Epilogue as a story, in my opinion, is one of, if not the best made episode of the entire DCAU, at least Justice League Unlimited. No matter where the direction of the story went, we could all say that the craftsmanship of a literal Saturday morning cartoon was done phenomenally. And the reason I believe it hit so hard is because of the performances, right? Will Friedle, he gives a very quiet bitterness to Terry, a vulnerability that I believe was simmering there since the death of his father, and it's only starting to compound a lot more as he's grown into an adult. CCH Pounder, who is the voice of Amanda Waller, gives a gravitas of somebody delivering gospel, and even later on in the story, we'll even see her quote scriptures and God himself. And then we have the goat himself, Kevin Conroy. Rest in peace, my goat, bro. Somebody that I feel like we're just missing in the year. Every single time we move on, year after year, there's that one piece, that little black hole that will never truly be filled. But his version of Bruce, this very old, 90-year-old Bruce, was reserved, distant, and wounded, and he gave us a Bruce at the very end. At the end of the story, let me just mark up my own territory here before somebody gets on my case in the comments. He seems like a man who's aged into rare emotional honesty, even though he does struggle to express it. But the voice acting only works because the visual storytelling is working, right? Everything is working on every single level. The black and white flashbacks aren't real flashbacks at all. They're stylized projections of Terry's fears about Bruce's past. And what I mean by this is that he sees it as if Bruce's memories are carved in stone, and as his clone, Terry thinks that his own fate is similarly predetermined. As we see in those flashbacks, he had a moment where he leaves Dana. He had a moment where he completely shuts off his friends. He had a moment where Bruce Wayne was yelling at him for not taking the Batman role seriously, even though Terry is literally letting it consume and ruin his life. All of that comes into play, but put a juxtaposition right here though, because we see the A sequence throughout all of it as a story told by Amanda Waller, right? And this reveals the true Batman, because through the entire episode, we see somebody who's very mean and degrading, but now we see not a violent avenger, but a man who sits beside a dying girl Ace herself and holds her hand so she doesn't die alone. This is who Batman is. The emotional anchor of this episode is this scene right here, proving that Batman is not defined by his tragedy, as a lot of people will tell you. He's defined by compassion, because he does not have to be this way, but he chooses to be like this. All of this is tied together by a musical scene in the end that's frankly genius. The score slowly blends motifs, I believe, from the Batman Beyond, of course, universe of music, with a reimagined version of the original Batman the Animated Series theme. It's a full circle moment. Terry takes the skies, of course, with his wings, and we see a silhouette on the wall that mirrors the iconic Man-Bat shot from the very first Batman the Animated Series episode. It's deliberate. The DCAU starting and ending with Batman in one iconic moment, bridging Bruce and Terry in a visual statement without erasing their differences. The real meaning. Now, all of that is fine and dandy. I can glaze the episode as much as I want, but that is not going to change your mind or give you a better perspective. Here we reach the part where fans are going to argue, right? The reveal that Terry is Bruce Wayne's biological son. A lot of the criticism, as I've said before, goes into that makes Terry a clone, or it undermines his achievements, or it means that he didn't earn the mantle, right? He's a nepo baby. But none of that holds up under a very basic reading of the episode. Terry is not a clone, he wasn't raised by Bruce, he didn't inherit Bruce's trauma. As much as Amanda Waller wanted that to be the case when she hired Phantasm, she went against it. She said, no, we do not need to do that, let's completely throw away the project. He did not inherit his discipline, his upbringing, or even his worldview. All that he really inherited was a potential. A potential is not a destiny. Epilogue goes out of its way to show you that everything that made Terry Batman, the death of his father, his moral stubbornness, his refusal to let Gotham break him, his compassion, came from Terry himself. And let's be honest, the visual hints were always there. Terry and Matt, if we're going to look at this logically, put our thinking caps on, they always had very black hair, while both their parents have red hair. The inconsistency always felt intentional. And it adds another emotional weight to the idea that their parents had like a strained relationship because of this unspoken tension beneath it. Because why would two redheads produce two children that had different colored hair? But none of that diminishes character. If anything, that twist deepens him, and the thematic and emotional parallels is where this episode really shines. He isn't Bruce's replacement, he's Bruce's evolution. Emotionally, Bruce is isolation, right? He's trauma. He's discipline, he's willpower, and he forged all of those pieces into a life of self-imposed solitude, specifically at the end of his career. Terry is connection, right? He is a warmth and emotional resilience that he built up through relationships. Bruce sees the mission, though, as a burden at this point in his career, while Terry sees it as purpose. Bruce was formed by tragedy. Terry is formed by choice. We always have that discussion that Terry lost his childhood. His entire life was snatched away from him because of 2 bullets. Terry decided to do this. These differences aren't contradictions, they're the point. Terry is the first Batman who has the chance to break the cycle rather than continue it. He is what Batman becomes when the mission no longer grows out of a wound, but out of responsibility. And this is where a lot of the obvious Spider-Man parallels start to come out. But it's important to realize that Batman is not Spider-Man, and why not everybody can be Batman. The mantle is not meant to be universally accessible to anybody. It's not like Peter Parker, who randomly got bit by a spider and he had a bunch of powers. Anybody could be under the mask. That is the whole purpose of Spider-Man. To be Batman, it requires an extreme level of either mental discipline, physical ability, moral clarity, pain tolerance, and I guess just sheer willpower that a lot of people just simply do not have. And Terry proves that he had a lot of this long before he ever learned the truth of his lineage. Being Bruce's biological son, though, didn't give him the years of street experience, the hand-to-hand skill, the stubborn refusal to die that all came from Terry. Look at him. I could not do that if I were anybody else, right? If you were me and I were you and we were in his position, I don't know what I'm doing here, we would not be able to dodge a mace, grab onto a pole, spin around, and kick somebody off of a motorcycle. We would not be able to do a high-speed motorcycle chase across a highway, jump across literal roads, make our way all the way up to Wayne Manor, and fight a bunch of goons with weapons with our bare hands. His punches send people flying. This man was a street punk, but also he had that dog in him. He's wrestling cybernetically enhanced psychopaths on a Tuesday as Batman. You and I are not doing this. None of us are pulling up against a gang and tell them that they picked the wrong night. Terry is one of those few people who has the raw qualities necessary to be Batman. That twist doesn't cheapen anything. It explains why he is the way that he is in terms of physicality. Tying Bruce and Terry together creates a pitch-perfect thematic loop in my opinion. The Mantle becomes a story not about inherited trauma, but inherited compassion taken to the next level. Terry continues it by choosing connection instead of isolation. Logically, all of this really holds up because he was not meant to be Batman. He was Waller's failed experiment. Bruce didn't train him. Terry fell into the role purely by circumstance, but it was helped by Terry's genetics. His father's death, his confrontation with Derek Powers, his refusal to walk away from injustice. These were not engineered events. They were choices. Epilogue doesn't say Terry was destined to be Batman. It says that Terry had the potential and then earned everything else. Let's ask you a question. I'm gonna pose you one and you're gonna be on the spot. Just because you have parents, does that mean you're gonna follow in their directions because they were the ones that birthed you? No. Just because you have the potential to get an A in class, does that mean you're going to get it? No. I mean, I'm sorry. Just because you have the potential to be a doctor or a race car driver, you have so many opportunities, does that make it that you are going to be that? No. You have to earn it, you have to put your mind to it, and you have to make sure that that is what you want. Just because your parents want it for you doesn't mean that's supposed to be the case. Bruce, he did not want him to be a Batman in the first place. He was pushing against it so hard that it almost led to Terry's death. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think the same way as my parents. Shocking, I know. I'm sure you don't as well, unless you came from a different planet that I just don't know of. Maybe you're a puppet that gets controlled by your parents and you have to go like mow the lawn and take out the groceries and, you know, do all these things just because they have a string attached to you, even though you're the big age of an adult. Like, I don't know what the thought process is about how this possibly could ruin Terry's character. Terry McGinnis, a better successor. When you look at everything and how it lays out all the plot threads and recontextualizes everything, the twist transforms Terry. The name of the game when it comes to him is evolution. He's not a product of like a manufactured fill of the void. He isn't a vessel here for Bruce's guilt. He isn't a copy-paste redo of Bruce's trauma. In this universe, he is the first Batman who isn't defined by tragedy. He's defined by the ability to grow past it. He's the next step on what Batman could possibly be. Bruce's entire life was a wound that was consumed by a mission. Terry's life is a mission he chooses, despite the wound. Being Bruce's son doesn't chain him down to Bruce's identity, it gives him a foundation to work with, building blocks to play with, to rebuild the identity into something healthier. Bruce was the Batman Gotham needed during its darkest age. He forged it out of grief, sharpened it through obsession, and held all of it together, the entire city, by pure will, and that is something to be applauded. But Terry, he became the Batman that Neo Gotham needs, a place that became possibly as worse, if not more worse, than the original Gotham. How do you deal with a Gotham that feels like it merged with Bloodhaven, literally its sister city, a place with equal if not more corruption? Well, you become a Batman who can still fight for the city, bleed for it, sacrifice, but refuses to let the mission swallow his humanity. Bruce couldn't escape the pain that his shadow was creating. Terry walks into that same shadow and brings light with him. That is why he's an evolution, not a downgrade. He inherits the potential of Bruce, yes, but he redirects it. That is something that comes from his own choices. He effectively takes the mantle of a man that lost so much, consumed by loss, and he turns it into something sustainable, something hopeful, Terry still has the rough around the edges, the grit, the classic trash talk while punching people in the face, but he isn't consumed by pushing people away. He doesn't collapse under the pressure. He holds on to the love. He embraces the world that Bruce always kept at an arm's length. And that's precisely that makes him worthy. Terry doesn't surpass Bruce by becoming stronger, faster, or younger. He takes a play out of Nightwing's playbook, something that he did not do in this universe. He learns from him. He sees everything that Bruce lost and chooses not to repeat it. Have you ever heard that saying that some people just have to learn the hard way? Terry is not that. He realizes that the Batman mythos and the mask, the cape and cowl, can be a gift and not a curse. A lifelong punishment is something it does not have to be. Terry becomes Bruce's son, but it gives Bruce something he never truly had. Closure. Batman begins his story as a broken child in an alley. In the DCAU, it ends with a man who has something resembling a family, a true family. Batman's darkest moment created him, but his greatest moments allowed somebody else to rise without falling apart. Terry redefines everything. He's the final statement of what Batman can become when pain gives way to growth and not stagnation. In that way, Terry isn't just the next Batman, he's the first Batman who stands beyond what the mantle used to be. But yeah guys, what do you think about Epilogue? I still love it. I believe it to be one of the best episodes, in my opinion, of the entire DCAU, and I feel like it doesn't take anything from it. Yes, you can consider it to be unnecessary, but it doesn't diminish Terry as a character. I've seen a lot of people say that he's less. He's not the character that he should be. He's not the Spider-Man analog that the Batman mythos needs, but I never saw him to be that way. Yes, he takes a lot of Spider-Man mythos in terms of the villains, but everything gets recontextualized and put into a Batman blender. Copying is not the name of the game. What is, though, is taking the pieces that were already there and constructing something new out of it. That's what a good analog is, not somebody that follows under the same trappings of a previously established character. I know this is going to be a very rough contention, but let's keep everything civil down in the comment section. I know everything will be okay. And give your opinion, have your own little thesis down below. We'll love to read it, and maybe we'll get a new insight into why people love this retcon or why they hate it. All of it is still valid. All I ask is that it is civil. But yeah guys, see you all later. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, take care, deuces, peace.